This is No More Room in Hell 2, the entirely co-op, objective-based zombie horror game releasing on Halloween later this year. Now, if it's not on your radar already, this video will aim to tell you a bit more about the game and its original prequel, show some footage from recent trailers and dev diaries, as well as covering what we might be able to expect based on mechanics from the first game and what the developers have shared thus far. Hopefully by the end of this video you'll know whether or not it's one you're interested in playing, and if you do, maybe drop the video a like and subscribe to the channel for all things zombie and survival games. So first things first, what is No More Room in Hell 2? To give you a basic summary, imagine if Left 4 Dead were a slower, more punishing horror experience, where if you die, that's it, you're done. The game has announced its release date at Summer Games Fest this year with a new trailer, as well as a dev diary at the PC Games Show, and is set to drop on Halloween of 2024. But that's just the basic overview. Let's take a look in a bit more detail now. Each game has up to 8 players and is entirely co-op, with no PvP involved whatsoever. So if you're looking for a game in which the players control some of the zombies, this isn't it. Instead, you'll be dedicated to trying to stay alive as one of the responders to the outbreak by scavenging what you can while searching for the other survivors and then attempting to complete several objectives in various parts of the map, culminating at one final showdown involving all of the remaining players. There's a heavy emphasis on teamwork and conservation of resources in No More Room in Hell, which is carried over from the first game. I can tell you from experience this results in some incredibly tense moments where every shot counts, and you might be relying on teammates to throw you some ammo or take out some zombies for you when your weapon runs dry. Now, especially at the start of the game, this can also mean quite a big push towards the use of melee weapons too, and it'll be interesting to see how melee weapon combat has changed between the two games, and I'll get onto that in a bit more detail later because there's a bit more behind that. One of the biggest elements to No More Room in Hell though is that there are no respawns. It's a permadeath experience. If a survivor dies, the rest of the team will have to dispatch their zombified corpse, scavenge supplies they can from their bodies, and move on without them to complete the objective. Now, the prequel did have a wave-based survival mode as well, but we've not had any mention of that just yet in any of the footage we've seen so far. And interestingly as well, the developers do seem to hint towards one singular map that's incredibly large in size, rather than several maps like the first game did. I'm unsure if this is just the plan for early access, and maybe we'll get some more maps later down the line, but it's a very brave decision to say the least, and hopefully the map is both vast enough and interesting enough to keep players busy for extended periods, if that is the way they're choosing to go. The map design we've seen from the trailers does look incredibly detailed. There's some really creative use of lighting to sell that immersive horror experience, and there seems to be some real variety in the environments too. The map we've been told about is a power plant set in rural Pennsylvania, which looks very imposing, and the developers have even stated that the various objectives we'll need to complete around the map have been inspired by iconic horror and zombie media scenarios, so that sounds pretty promising. So where has No More Room in Hell actually come from? There's probably a handful of you watching this that have played the original game way back in 2011, when it first released as a mod for Half-Life 2. It was then released as a standalone game in 2013 by Lever Games, who have now been acquired by Torn Banner Studios, allowing many of the original game's developers to work on the sequel as full-time game developers, rather than part-time modders working on a passion project. Now, I think I was about 13 or something when I first played this game, and I'm now 27, so it's been a long time since the original, and of course it is a bit dated by this point, but if you're interested in learning a bit more about what we can expect from the sequel, the original game is free to play on Steam, and it's still a lot of fun to this day, especially if you've got a friend or two to join you. I actually went and played a few rounds of the original myself when I was making this video, and it definitely still holds up despite its age. One thing I definitely took away from playing the first one again though is that the zombies are very grounded, as in there are no special types of zombies that could do crazy things like spit acid or scream for help, for example. Most of the zombies are just your average shamblers, but there are runners here and there to throw a spanner in the works, especially the ones that take the form of a reanimated teammate that's just fallen to the undead. Controversially, the first game also featured child zombies, which I'm gonna hazard a guess won't be in the second game just to avoid any complications. Gaming in general is much more widespread now, and as a result is more heavily regulated, so it would be a gamble at best if they decided to include those. Still, something to think about if you're thinking of giving it a try. We're unlikely to see those special infected zombie variants. Now, just a moment ago I mentioned that Torn Banner have acquired the original developers, and if you're thinking to yourself that name is familiar and you're not quite sure why, that's because these guys made Chivalry, which was also originally a mod for Half-Life 2 and then became a standalone game with its own sequel. The guys at Torn Banner have quite literally been through exactly the same process as the developers from the once Lever games, and as a result can bring that expertise to the table for the release of this game. To say it's in good hands is probably a huge understatement in this case. I'm also expecting it to have a big impact on the melee combat of the game, based on some of the developers from Torn Banner obviously having a lot of experience with making this feel weighted and impactful within the Chivalry franchise. At the time, the melee combat in the first No More Room in Hell was pretty good, but today expectations are significantly higher, and again, I'd say the developers have got some really strong talent on hand to help them with this one. So that's just about it for everything you need to know about No More Room in Hell 2, and this video was really just to put it on your radar and help you decide if it's one you'd like to track as we get closer to its release this Halloween. But if you're looking for some more intel about the game, I'm going to leave a link down in the description to both the Steam store page and the official No More Room in Hell Discord server, where you can take a look at FAQs, ask questions about the game yourself, and discuss features with other interested parties. I'm sure I'll be covering this one a bit more as well, because I'm definitely looking forward to this one releasing, so once again, subscribe to the channel if you think you'd like to see more guides, tips and tricks, that sort of thing when the game drops. Special thank you to all of my Patreon supporters for backing my channel, starting at just £1 a month, getting insider access to some of my content, and for joining our whitelisted game servers. I couldn't do it without you guys, so a massive thank you to you. That's it from me, and I will see you all in the next one.